Welcome to Big Blue Breakdown March Madness Postseason NCAA Tournament Edition. Your host, as always, the main man, Matthew Lyle, joined with me by the sick, allergy-infested Michael Bucknasty. How you doing, Bucknasty?
Man, I'm feeling 100% better, but I sound 100% worse. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation here.
Yeah, if anybody listening, I imagine it sounds like a hillbilly is hosting a show with a gravel-filled trash compactor.
It definitely sounds like I've been smoking since I'm like 9 years old. Like, hey, get over there and give me that beer, Billy.
You sound like an 80-year-old woman who has been smoking since she was 6. And then they're coughing all over the airways.
Yeah,
like we're all catching that.
Try to turn it down for you. I'm sorry.
We're going to hop in here. For us Kentucky fans, we're just waiting. We had a rough weekend. Started off Friday, pretty nice win versus Alabama. Nice little revenge for us. They beat us earlier in the season. First actual SEC road game we had. First SEC game that we had as well. They beat us. We got nice revenge. Locked that up. It came time to get revenge versus Tennessee, and we had it, but we lost it. They ended up losing some bad calls down the stretch, really both ways. Bad calls that really had a negative impact on us in the latter part of the game. We ended up losing. Arguably, it cost us some seeding. We can get to that in a minute. We ended up being the 2 seed out in the Midwest. But what was your takeaway about the 2 NCAA or SEC tournament games that we played, Mike?
Well, let's start there with the first game here. I was really impressed of like how we came out and played. We played a complete game, I think. I kind of caught myself like second half. I think like at one point like 15 or 16 points, and I caught myself kind of like snoozing on the couch. Like looking over here, looking over there. Like I ran outside and got some ice cream or something. It was just like I was like, well, like this is it kind of felt like one of those January games where like it like you can passively aggressively watch the game, but you never felt like you were ever going to lose the game, and kind of looking back on it, it kind of scared me a little bit, just because of now I know the outcome of the Tennessee game. I don't just because like going into the Tennessee game, I think we all had really high hopes. We definitely thought we were going to do really, really well, and like I don't think we necessarily played bad. I feel like it was Kentucky versus Tennessee versus the refs. I'm not saying it was Kentucky was getting screwed. Both teams were getting screwed pretty bad. It's just like a lot of. I felt like the referees needed to add their they needed to make their two cents heard. They had to meet a quota of fouls or something. I gotta know, but that Tennessee game, it almost got to a point where it was hard to watch. Like from the
I think there was 6 straight total possessions, 3 for us, 3 for them, where one of us went to the line.
Yeah, it was just, it drug it out. It was slow. It was boring. Yeah,
and that's where my thing is going to come into play. Is I don't like to blame the refs. Yes, the refs can have an impact. Some games more than others. All the Florida Auburn game where they was intentionally fouling. He tried to shoot a 3 and no call at all. Not even the intentional foul prior to the shot or during the shot. But I think the problem is, and this kind of goes back to that LSU law, if you put us in the hands of the ref, you're stuck with their outcome. You have to deal with what they see fit. So when we have an 8-point lead against Tennessee, an 8-point lead against LSU, we have to make plays. Even the refs did make some bad calls, but we got to the free throw line and we didn't hit them. Keldon Johnson made a questionable play. Tyler Hero traveled on just a brainless, like a clueless play, just kind of like a brain fart. PJ Washington missed
I kind of want to go back to that play. Like, what do you think was going through his head? Because it seemed like he was like thinking of the Instagram model or something. Like, honestly, like I don't know what was going on.
I don't think he really expected to get it. A lot of times on those inbound plays, there's a guy running across the court.
Right.
He's the decoy, so the point guard can come underneath and get it. I don't know if he was fully expecting it, and then once he passed it, was like, oh, crap, now I have to do something with the basketball. He went to turn up, boom, there Tennessee was, and he just kind of,
Right.
had a freshman moment.
Yeah, and speaking of that, there was several times that Nick, he was underneath the basket, PJ would pass in the ball, or Hagens would pass in the ball, and he would not be expecting it either. He's like, oh, I was expecting to get up and to go for a rebound, not a first shot here.
Yeah, so there was a time, I think the final 7 minutes, Tyler Hero didn't take a shot, and in the final 4 minutes, I don't think he touched the ball at all, which is very concerning, except for that one play where he had the turnover. It's very concerning, and I think those are the little things that we can tweak. It just kind of frustrating to see it happen against a big opponent. But with the same breath, do you lose if you had to pick and winning the SEC tournament wasn't an option? Yes, it stinks losing to Tennessee. They're kind of a rival this year. I mean, I consider Duke or Louisville more of a rival, but Louisville's just kind of down right now. Tennessee, over the last 2 years, has kind of popped up and said, hey, we're your rival now. So it does kind of stink losing to them in the manner that we did. But, Mike, would you rather have lost to that Tennessee game, to that Tennessee team, and have a bit of a hunger about you than do kind of what Tennessee did? Say we would have beaten Tennessee, but we have just been so exhausted, and Auburn wasn't missing a shot.
Right.
Would you have rather lost to Tennessee and left hungry and wanting revenge, or exhausted and getting obliterated by an Auburn team that it wouldn't have worked out this way before, but that are now in our bracket?
Yeah.
So
I'm definitely on the first part of that. Yeah, I'm definitely on the first part of that. Yeah, I mean, because I think this loss to the Volunteers. Now, if it was a blowout loss, I think I would have much rather gotten a blowout loss in the SEC championship. But just the way we lost, we lost by four points, and I really think this definitely puts a chip on their shoulder. And if you watch that post game interview with Admiral Grant and that other guy that they had, I think it was Bone up there. That was their championship game. They were thanking God. They were sending prayers out to the Auburn people or Alabama people. I don't know who they're sending prayers out to, but they were literally talking like they just won the NCAA championship game. So that kind of puts a chip on my shoulder. Hey, well, maybe not quite a chip on the shoulder, but definitely hey, you know what? They think we are a championship caliber team, and that just makes me that much more hungry to beat them again, to go out and beat Duke and whoever else we're going to possibly play.
So from basically everything I've watched, here was kind of the options for us in the tournament, which is really truly what matters to us more than anything else, is in 2000, or I don't know, I was thinking something else, sorry. But if we would have, losing as we did, we know where we're at. We're the 2 seed in the Midwest. We have a chance at revenge versus a Seton Hall or a scrappy Wofford team, a Houston, Iowa State team that could give us trouble, or we could beat by 20, depending on which version of us shows up.
Right. And
then we have a top half of the bracket, which is pretty top heavy, but the good thing is we only have to play one of them. We're either going to have to play Kansas essentially at home, which I didn't know Kansas City was only 41 miles from Lawrence.
Yeah,
so that's kind of a scary thing. But I don't really have that much faith in them getting there. There's an Auburn team up there that's scary good right now, which is, I think this is the most Bruce Pearl thing ever, which is basically last year there was all kinds of hype around him. Couldn't get it done. Lost early in the SEC tournament, lost early in the NCAA tournament. This year they come in ranked top 5. They start falling. They're losing to everybody. Everybody's laughing at them, calling them out. And here they are with really an SEC championship and really an opportunity to make them at least an Elite Eight, if not further, because I think they match up really well against North Carolina. We'll get to that in a little bit. And then, of course, North Carolina's that 1 seed.
Right.
I think had we beaten Tennessee but lost to Auburn, we would have been the 2 seed in the South.
Yeah.
Which I think that bracket's a little tougher with Villanova and Purdue. But I think if we could have gotten to the Elite Eight, and likely playing a K-State, a Wisconsin, even an Oregon or a Virginia. I like our odds there. So I'm in Louisville. So I'm a little envious of that. But the bottom half of that bracket is scarier in the South. So we may not have made it out of Columbus.
Right.
You know, we go up there in Columbus and play Cincinnati. It don't matter if you don't get Louisville. So I think there's some perks. There's some downsides of that. Ask me again after the season. You know, obviously if we go and lose North Carolina, I'll be like, hey, I wish we were in Louisville. But honestly, even more scary, I think if we would have won the SEC tournament, we would have been the 1 seed in the Midwest. And that's even scarier than being the 2 seed. Because they wouldn't have put Auburn in there with us. I think they would have put a school like Wisconsin. And I think the likelihood of playing a Sweet 16 game versus Kansas in Kansas City would have been a really high probability. And then they would have, without a doubt, put North Carolina at that 2 seed. So the bracket would have been the exact same, except tougher, if we would have won the SEC tournament. So once I saw that come out, and once I started thinking these things, I was like, I'm good with it.
Like a little blessing in disguise type thing.
Yeah, because, you know, our road to if everything sticks, our road to the Elite Eight now, or to the Final Four, would be we have to beat Abilene Christian. We'd probably have to beat Wofford. Then Houston would be the highest seed, and then we'd get North Carolina in the Elite Eight.
Just to stay on your revenge tour thing, I kind of hope Seton Hall does beat them, because I would love to beat down Seton Hall. Like 20, 30, 40 points.
Like, at first I was like, do I want to play him again? Because to our conversation earlier in the year, that Powell kid is really good.
Yeah, he is.
But I got to thinking when that game was. That game was before Ashton Hagans. Now I think you put Ashton Hagans on him and it's a wrap.
Yeah, well,
I mean, he's still probably going to get some shots, but Ashton Hagans didn't really come on until 2 or 3 games later.
Well, if you listen to that interview with Cal on ESPN during the selection show, like he says, they don't even start training on that other side of the ball like until the season starts. So what? That was like 6 games in, 7 games in. So their defense is so raw still. Like they're just still working on.
Right.
Hey, put one foot in front of the other. You know, they're still doing baby steps. So this would be a totally different game.
Tyler Hero hadn't found a rhythm at this point. You know,
I don't think anybody has yet. Like honestly,
no. The only person who really had was the veteran guy who had been this before was Reed Travis. But it's not like Reed Travis has gotten worse.
No.
You know, as long as he's healthy, he's still going to be what he was. Plus, you get. I think TJ was pretty well set at that time, and now you get a Tyler Hero shooting. You get a. Not only do you get Ashton Hagans, what he does. Think back to that time. I'm pretty sure that was still when we had Quade or right after we lost him. So the guards still didn't know their role.
I think we lost him the next game.
Ashton Hagans knows his role. Then coming off the bench, you have Emmanuel Quickly knowing his role. So now that you have these defined roles, it's going to be much easier for that backcourt, which is really where all of our problems came versus Seton Hall.
And you have a confident Nick Richards coming off the bench.
Nick Richards and E.J. Montgomery coming together. Yeah, I like our odds there. So let's start with that. Let's start in the bracket. I'm going to go pick my Sweet 16s. I'm going to start with the Midwest because that's where we're talking. I think what you're going to have is North Carolina is going to have no problem getting to the Sweet 16. I actually think it's going to be Auburn, Kansas. I think Auburn's a better team. I think they'll face up with North Carolina. Me and you talked about this. I just don't trust Houston. 2 of their 3 losses has come in the month of March.
Right.
I just don't think they're ready to be here. Give me that Iowa State team who has been kind of questionable down the last month of the season, February into March, but they won the Big 12 tournament. We've talked. That's a difficult conference to navigate through. They did so. Give me them, and then I think Kentucky gets revenge. Or I wouldn't be surprised if going into the Sweet 16, Kentucky's won every game. You know, both those games by double digits.
Right.
So that's my Sweet 16. I got Kansas or North Carolina, Auburn, Iowa State, Kentucky. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think North Carolina is going to roll through their first 2 games as they should. The biggest game that I'm circling for this region here is the Auburn KU game. Every time I count Kansas out, they make it to the championship game. I don't know what they do, like it is him, itself, and Tom Izzo. Every time they count, like you count their teams out, like, oh, they're a 4 seed, oh, they're a 5 seed, oh, they're 8 seed. They end up in the Final Four somehow, some way. As hard as this is going to be for me to say, I'm picking a Tar Heel Jayhawk semifinal game up there. Same thing with Iowa State. Every time you pick Iowa State, they lose in the first round to a 15 seed. Every time you pick them, or you pick them to lose in the first round, you see them in the Final Four. So with that being said, I don't think Houston's going to make it out of the first round. So I think this gives Iowa State a little bit easier chance to make it to the Sweet 16. So I'm putting them there, and then I'm definitely going to go Kentucky. I don't think any of those matchups really put us behind the 8 ball going to the Sweet 16.
Okay, so we'll just work our way through this bracket to keep it simple because there's so many teams. So to move on to my Elite Eight, I have Kansas, North Carolina, Auburn. I'm going out on a limb on this one. I say Auburn is one of the only teams in the country that wants to run as fast as – maybe they don't typically do it, but they're okay running as fast as North Carolina. And they're about the only team that's going to shoot more three-pointers than North Carolina that you're going to see at this area. I think North Carolina – because North Carolina has 3 losses this season of at least 15 points.
Right.
Us, Michigan earlier in the season, and Louisville at home, which, look, we do too, but I think that tells me that any given night this team can lay a dud. I think it happens against the Auburn team because, once again, we're talking what is the most Bruce Pearl thing you can see? Them versus North Carolina.
Right.
No one would expect Bruce Pearl to beat North Carolina. I think he does. He goes to the Elite Eight in the South, and the bottom half of that, Kentucky, Iowa State. I actually think we are substantially better than them, but I hope it's a little bit of a struggle. I don't want to lose by any means, of course. Nobody wants to lose in March. But because I don't want to go into an Elite Eight matchup versus the quote-unquote underdog in Auburn, beating everybody by 20 points. I need that. I need our boys to say, Iowa State, who's that?
Right.
And then almost, really struggle. We come out there and say, oh, okay, we got to take everybody serious in March. Because I'm afraid if you just run through everybody, you get done like Tennessee got done in the SEC championship, and Auburn just shoots you out the building. So I think it's going to be Kentucky, Auburn, but I hope Kentucky. By no means I want them to lose. I don't want them to struggle. I just want them to be one of those things like Iowa State throws one haymaker, maybe early second half, but Kentucky, Auburn's my Elite Eight. What say you?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you on the North Carolina thing. So I actually have Kansas beating North Carolina. I think North Carolina is a great team. Don't get me wrong, but for some reason, coaching at this time of year, and there's just kind of history, kind of plays a lot of factors in it. And it seems like Roy Williams can never beat his old team when it time that matters. For those of you that have not been following Big 12 basketball, Roy Williams used to be a Kansas coach back when they were the Big 8 about 15, 16 years ago. And then he went back to North Carolina to coach. So I'm picking Kansas to beat them. And then this Iowa State team kind of has me scared. I've seen them play Kansas State 3 or 4 times this year. I've seen them play against KU. They beat KU, and then they got destroyed by KU. So they can definitely step up to the big tournament time. They have a shooting guard. The number's 3, and we always seem to struggle with somebody that can shoot the ball lights out. And when this kid gets hot, he gets hot. So I'm definitely on your bandwagon here. I kind of want them to struggle, but I don't ever want to feel like we're ever going to lose the game. Like I'm like,
right?
I want it to be like a 4-point game with 2 minutes left, and we pull it out by 10.
Yeah, those are always the best because the tournaments are always frustrating enough. Moving on to the Elite Eight, who would advance to the Final Four? I'm at the point though, like the Elite Eight, I am in no way confident with, and I'm confident that we're going to win. But there's not a realistic probability of our Elite Eight opponent where I get to sit back and kind of unwind a little bit and relax, even though maybe you should never do that in the Elite Eight. But you got North Carolina, who actually beat once, who is one of the hottest teams in the country right now. You got Auburn, who we beat twice. Mike, we've talked a lot about how hard it is to beat a team 3 times. And then you got Kansas, a team that we struggled with and ended up beating by double digits at home. I definitely don't want to play them
when they were 4 straight
in Kansas City. Well, they're still down. Vic ain't coming back. The big guy's not playing, right. And they got that guy. So they're actually a little less than what we had when we played them the first time. But they've had the rest of the season to gel and get kind of going in that right direction. But Kentucky, Auburn, Elite Eight. I think that's where the Bruce Pearl bug bites again. Bruce Pearl now has his team getting a lot of hype. You win the SEC tournament, you beat Kansas, you beat North Carolina. Everybody started to say, "Can you beat Kentucky?" Hopefully the tides turn a little bit, because hopefully somebody's like, "Oh, they should have lost to Iowa State," like we just talked. And I hope that Kentucky turns that into some kind of material. And because I think if they can beat Auburn, I think it'll be much like the last time we played them. It'll be a double-digit win.
Right.
Because if their shots aren't falling, we are just considerably better than them everywhere. Because if you think about it, even though when we went to Auburn, we barely won, we had a 17-point lead most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the truth is we are about 15 to 20 points better than that team, especially if they can't hit the 3. So I think we end up winning. I think the first half's going to be stressful. Any Elite Eight game you watch is going to be stressful. But I got Kentucky advancing to the Final Four. What about you, Mike?
Right, and if I had the Kentucky Auburn matchup just like you did, I would definitely be tuning into this game early and often. Like, I wouldn't be leaving my couch, because I did see some crazy stat where Auburn made, what was it, 53s in the SEC tournament or something like that. It was just something off the wall crazy. So either they're really, really good or they're really, 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 really bad. And the old saying says defense wins championships. But I don't have Auburn in there. I got KU in there, and I think we handle business against Kansas again. Kansas just doesn't have the experience. They've actually taken a red shirt away from a guy earlier this year to basically fill out the roster. He is starting to come into his own a little bit, but I don't want to sound like hypocritical, but the youthness of Kansas is going to bite him in the butt here. Kentucky's young too, yeah, I get it, but I think Kansas makes it to the Final Four out of the Midwest bracket.
Yeah, and I mean, I get what you're saying, Mike, because at face value, it does sound a little bit hypocritical. You know, you're saying the youth of one team, well, the other team's got even probably more youth. But to your point, our youth has gotten to play together all year. Our best players are back. Our bench players got to improve while Reed Travis was gone. So, like, one team's trending up, or the other one's probably going in more of a decline direction. So we both have Kentucky going to the Final Four in that one. Let's bump up to the bracket. I'm going to go through my bracket real quick, since obviously Kentucky's not in all 4 brackets. We don't care as much about the 4. I have Virginia starting out early. I actually have Oregon, which is so funny. When I watched the big Pac-12 tournament, don't ask why I watched it, but Bill Walton, I couldn't stand him, but I couldn't turn it at the same time. From the moment the first game tipped off with Oregon, all he kept saying is Oregon is an NCAA tournament or an NCAA tournament team. And then his little co-host guy kept laughing at him. I laughed at him. I even made some posts on Twitter about how, at one point in the game, Oregon not only didn't look like an NCAA tournament, they didn't look like an NCAA team.
Right.
Like I think they were airball like 4 3-pointers. Literally every person who passed the ball to someone else, when that person received the ball, chance came in of airball. Like, that's how bad it was. And then they just kind of turned it around. So I got to keep riding that hot hand. I actually, had a lot of faith in Wisconsin to do some things, but I think Oregon would actually out Wisconsin, move them in there. I got K-State advancing, but beating Oregon, moving them to the Sweet 16. So Virginia and K-State would be that top 16 matchup, top Sweet 16. Down at the bottom, I think Villanova actually gets it going. Jay Wright, yes, this isn't the team that won 2 national titles in 3 years, but I think Jay Wright gets them together. They go to the Sweet 16. I think Tennessee, I think they actually struggle with Cincinnati, almost to the point where you think Cincinnati in Columbus could beat them, but I think Tennessee moves on. I have Tennessee then ending Villanova's hot streak, which would continue the streak since 2007. No team that has won the national title has made it past the Sweet 16 the following year. That would continue here with Tennessee moving to the Elite Eight. I actually have your K-State upsetting Virginia. I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure you'll tell me about Dean Wade's condition, But I think this is where Virginia falls out. Give me Elite Eight, can K-State, Tennessee. I think Tennessee, Grant Williams, Schofield's too much. Tennessee in the Final Four.
Yeah, I hear everything you're saying. I think Virginia's going to get knocked out in the second round to Ole Miss.
Okay. Well, SEC love there.
Yeah, I do like this Ole Miss team. I've been kind of high on them kind of all year. Kind of like a low-key fanboying them like a little bit. I do like your Oregon upset pick there. I have that upset as well. Now this Kansas State game, this concerns me a little bit because I heard conflicting reports. Dean Wade, which is like basically like the heart and soul of the team. He's their power forward, shoot threes, inside outside game. He is supposed to not to play in the tournament, and I don't know. I don't know if K-State can get out of the first round versus this anteater team. Like if Dean Wade doesn't play, but now I'm reading a report right now saying that Dean Wade is at practice and is looking healthy. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a ploy. I don't know what kind of ploy they could be talking about here. But if you remember right, Dean Wade did not play last year until the Elite Eight versus Kentucky was his first game back.
The Sweet 16.
But yeah, Sweet 16.
And that's how it was last year, Mike.
Right.
Week one, because I watched everybody in that bracket. The first game, is he coming back? The second game, is he coming back? It was just kind of. At one point, you actually think it's just smoke screen, but then he actually played, and he really didn't do too much, but he did enough, and I'm curious to see what that turns into this season.
Well, my thing is, he is a senior this year. He's been in a walking boot since before the season ended. I think he's going to play. I think he's going to be fine. So I do have Kansas State advancing there. I like Villanova, Purdue. I like Iowa beating Cincinnati. I've been kind of watching.
Oh, you don't have Cincinnati getting there. Okay.
No, and then I got Tennessee beating, obviously, Colgate or whoever that is. So moving forward there, I got Old Miss beating Virginia. I think Old Miss is just that Cinderella type team, and like I don't think Virginia's that good. They're going to be the first number one seed to lose. Then I have K-State beating Wisconsin. Oregon. And then I got Purdue beating Villanova. I'm high on this Purdue team, and then Tennessee beating Iowa. Moving forward there, and then I do have Kansas State beating Old Miss, and then I have Purdue beating Tennessee, and then I have Purdue coming out of that bracket.
Okay. It's so crazy that with Purdue, that sounds like a far-fetched, but they're a 3 seed. That really shouldn't be. But hey, let's see it.
And they've only lost one guy from last year, so like I'm banking on the experience factor for them.
It very well may be. Like I said, I have trouble trusting the Big Ten. Moving on, we're going to move over to the East. I'm going to go through the first 2 rounds real quick here. I got Duke advancing through with no problem. I think they do play UCF, which is going to be a fun game to watch. With the creative player known as Taco Fall, 7'7", looks just twice as big as everybody. I think he actually may get a couple of blocks on Zion just because
he looks 36.
You're that big. But I think Duke runs through there no problem. I have them matching up with Mississippi State. I think the upset there becomes St. Louis over Va-Tech. I have Mississippi State in the Sweet 16. Going down even further, LSU, yes, without a coach, I think their strength and their length and their athleticism is just better than anyone they'll face in their little pod. And Michigan State, even though they are down one of their better players, I don't really see them struggling with their first round matchup, which I think it's Bradley, and then they have I think it'll be Minnesota, could be Louisville. Either way, I don't see them really struggling with that. My Sweet 16 would be Duke, Michigan State, or Mississippi State, and then LSU, Michigan State. I think Duke beats Mississippi State by 30. I think it's just one of those games where everybody says, "Hey, is this the one they can?" Because you give Coach K a week to prepare. Mississippi State's really only got that one good player, that guard. I just don't think it's going to be anything near enough. Give me Duke by 30 on that one. LSU is the team I think could give Duke a run for its money. Unfortunately, I've seen Tom Izzo beat some good coaches, and whoever they have coaching in Will Wade's spot for LSU just isn't going to be it. Michigan State, Duke in the Elite Eight. I think it's going to go a lot like we've seen Duke or Michigan State do in the Champions Classic and some of the other early big matchups. I think Duke gets like a 30-point lead. Michigan State will probably cut it down to about 8, just with about 4 minutes to go, just enough to think it's going to be something. But Duke and those 3 talented players are just too much. They pull it out. Duke will advance to the Final Four.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on your board on this bracket here. But I definitely see this bracket being the Sweet 16 that we could have. You could have 4 like high-ranked teams there. But I do have Duke advancing. I have UCF advancing, and this is where it gets kind of tricky. I want to pick that Liberty upset, but I also don't like Virginia Tech. I think they're highly overrated. So I'm going to pick both upsets here. I'm going to go with Liberty and then the SLU team. I think. Then I had Temple coming out of the play-in game and beating Maryland, and then I have Yale beating LSU. I have Minnesota beating Louisville, and then Michigan State advancing. So the very, very bottom seeded heavy going into the second round here. Then I have Duke winning. Then I have Liberty advancing out of that one. And then I have Yale advancing, beating Temple, and then I have Michigan State. So you have Yale versus Michigan State, and then I have Liberty versus Duke. I think Duke and Michigan State both advance, with Duke beating Michigan State.
Okay. And so you got our Final Fours are about the same, minus Purdue and Tennessee. Going down to, I think it's the West. I actually think Gonzaga will be the first one seed to fall. I think they will fall to a Syracuse team that will have that zone, have that link. That zone is a tough thing to beat when you're not used to seeing it. I don't think Gonzaga is going to be used to see it. This is the upset I'm riding with. Ja Morant and Murray State will beat Marquette and then turn around and beat Florida State, making it to the Sweet 16. Moving on down, I think. I got Texas Tech. I'm not real familiar with who else is in that pod. I just feel like Texas Tech is going to be the team that navigates through that. Michigan, I think they get a scare by Florida. You talked about an SEC tournament. If it wasn't a bad call and some questionable and a good shot down the stretch, maybe they could have won the SEC tournament like you talked about, Mike. I think they're a hot team. I just don't think they're enough to beat Michigan. I got Michigan moving on to the Sweet 16. I got Michigan beating Texas Tech. I just don't think they're quite there yet. I know they made the Elite Eight last year. I just don't think they can beat Michigan. I don't think they have that level of talent. And then you go up to the bracket. You got Syracuse and Murray State. I want the Ja Morant show to continue, but I don't think it does. I don't think one man can beat that zone. Give me Syracuse in the Elite Eight. You got Syracuse and Michigan. I think that's where you see that Michigan team hit that brick wall. Every team has it, almost like the 2010 Kentucky team versus West Virginia. Just a bad shooting night versus a pesky, unique style of defense. Give me Syracuse going to the Final Four. Making my Final Four Duke versus Syracuse, Kentucky versus Tennessee, ACC matchup, SEC matchup.
That's a bold pick there, Cotton.
See how it pays off for him.
But I do have your top half of the bracket the same. I do have Syracuse beating Gonzaga. I have Murray State beating Florida State as well. As I do think Florida State is a team that could definitely make a Elite Eight Final Four run. I think the Cinderella shoe fits the Marquette or the Murray State team, and that jaw guy. He just put the team on his back. He says, "Let's go, boys." I had Texas Tech beating Buffalo, but I do have Florida losing in the first round. I think they are going to have a hangover from that non-missed call, that kind of thing. So I have Nevada beating Florida, Michigan State beating Nevada. Sorry, Michigan beating Nevada. Texas Tech is a team really can't really count on making it to the Final Four, as they do have the talent to. I just don't think they get past Michigan. So I have Michigan beating Texas Tech. And then I have Syracuse beating Murray State. But then I have Michigan winning that bracket.
Okay, so my Final Four, going to bust through the Final Sub championship game. I got Duke versus Syracuse. I said it earlier, that zone is tough to beat if you don't face it a lot. Well, guess who faced it a lot? Duke. Duke played them 3 times, went 2-1 against them. I don't think Syracuse can pull the upset again. Duke's going to be at high power running through it. Duke's going to win pretty easily. I got Kentucky, Tennessee, and in the 4th round, and I think it's going to match it's going to continue the trend. Kentucky blasted Tennessee the first time. Tennessee blasted Kentucky the second time. 3rd game, Kentucky had a lead, ended up giving it away, and I think the same thing happens here. I think Tennessee ends up getting about a 6-point lead with about 3 minutes to go, and Kentucky ends up winning it. So I'm setting up a Kentucky-Duke championship matchup. What say you?
Yeah, I have the same championship you game, or you have. I think Michigan is going to get blasted by Duke in the Final Four. All the hype of Zion and R.J. Barrett and all those guys are going to finally weigh on the Michigan team. They're going to be kind of awestruck, and they're just going to get blasted. And then the Purdue-Kentucky game, I just don't think Purdue has the shooting capabilities from the outside or the ability to slow the game down enough to keep up with Kentucky. I think Kentucky wins by 12 points versus Purdue. Give me a Duke-UK championship matchup.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be great. We talked about it a little bit last time. We would really like to see Duke get a big lead and then see them choke it away. But I think this is just going to be one of those Kentucky. I think this is going to be a lot like that Duke North Carolina matchup in the ACC tournament. Duke's going to get a lead. I think Kentucky's going to get like an 8-point lead in the first half. Duke's going to have an 8-point lead early in the second half, and then the final 10 minutes is going to be like the greatest basketball game or ending that there is. I do it. I think it comes down with a buzzer beater. No, because those are really hard to get.
Right.
Because there's with the free throws and this and it's just really tough to get 3 seconds left. Because I don't consider you can consider it a game winner shot, but I don't consider it a buzzer beater if someone hits a shot and there's 2 seconds left. Because in theory, the other team has a chance to respond.
You're right.
To me, a buzzer beater is when the ball's in midair, the buzzer hits, and then swish, and you get nothing. Which I'd rather lose like that than have like a 1.2 seconds left and you got to heave up a half-court shot. Because you know how it works. They always call a timeout. They always draw up a play, and you're just sitting there thinking, we're not going to do this. I'd rather just lose on the buzzer beater and just be like, oh, it's over. But I think it's going to make that. I have Kentucky winning 78-76. For all intent and purposes, I would love to set up a little scenario where it's like 72-75. Cam Reddish comes down, R.J. Barrett, somebody comes down, hits a big 3-pointer, making it 77-70 or 76-75. And then, Tyler Hero, corner pocket, swish,
right.
Buzzer beater, a la Andrew Harrison, 2014. I'd love to see that. But I got Kentucky winning 78-76, winning their 9th national title. And we've talked about this. You can't have your cake and eat it both. I think when that happens, Reed graduates, PJ goes pro, Keldon goes pro, Hero goes pro, Higgins goes pro. I think Nick Richards priced the draft because you realize, because let's be honest, he's going to have to contribute some way, shape, or form to win a national title. He don't have to play great, but he's going to have to do something.
Yep.
I think he tries to parlay the ring, the championship, the NCAA March Madness run, and try to get his 7-foot self into the second round, which I think could easily happen. Because if you pick up a 7-footer in the second round, they're going to have some staying power unless they're just god-awful. And then I wouldn't be surprised because you kind of start to see it here down the stretch. Calipari's class of next year is starting to fall in. You got some pieces going. I wouldn't be surprised. You called this early on. I didn't think it would happen, but just seeing some of the names he's recruiting, and now that we're here in March Madness, if Cal gets some of those names to reclassify or some of those guards to commit, don't be surprised if Baker leaves. Baker gets a championship, and now tries to go to a St. John's or a DuPont. I think he's from Chicago or wherever. Tries to go to a school like that and score 25 a game, knowing he's already got the championship. He doesn't need to win one again.
True.
So that I think that's what that is.
Yeah,
but Mike, any thoughts on the tournament there?
Yeah, just to give your my thoughts on the championship game. I think if we do not go in there early versus Duke, and we give them a good haymaker early and like an often, I think the kids are going to have a flashback of earlier in the year. Yeah, we are a much improved team by this point. But it is hard not to look like, oh man, we lost at 30 like the last time we played these guys, and we just gave them a haymaker, and they're still up by 10. So hopefully, we are foot to foot with them, if we are foot with them with like 10 minutes left in the game, I'm very, very confident, and I do think we win the championship at that point. Just to add to your point here, I do see PJ going pro, obviously. I see Keldon going pro. Reed obviously is graduating. Higgins is going. I think Hero is gone as well. I think if Kentucky makes it to at least the Sweet 16, there'll be enough highs on Hero that he will go. End up like on, I don't know, a Golden State team, so late first round pick. Speaking of that, the Baker guy, he is a JUCO transfer, so I'm not for sure.
No, he came here as a freshman last year. He just broke it. He tore his ACL.
Oh,
he was a guy that when Kentucky missed out on a guy last year. I want to say it was like Colin Sexton. It was one of those players we missed out on, or somebody left who Cal didn't think he would, and he ran out last minute and got this kid who had just won like Mr. Illinois basketball. He came, tore his ACL, had to sit out the entire season, come back, was back this year, and then finally made his way onto the court.
Okay, so I was misinformed there. I was told he was a JUCO transfer. So yes,
no.
Looking at this now, yeah, I do see that he is a freshman from California. So yeah, I definitely.
Oh, California! I don't know what I was saying on those. So yeah, I can see him almost like Marcus Lee going out there and joining Gonzaga. I don't think that's where he goes, but a school like that where,
right?
Hey, come out here and shoot as many threes as you want, miss as many as you want, do whatever, because you're the best player we got. I could easily see, especially if we win the title. Now, if we don't and guys still leave, I could see him playing a big key in this next year. But I think if we win a title, there's going to be some guys who want to cling on here. I think he tries to go to I don't know many of the smaller schools out in California, but teams that there is, but teams that like the Gonzaga style where you just come out here and just shoot whatever you want, whenever you want. Maybe even goes to Gonzaga. I don't know. But yeah, that's my thought. But do you think this year, because me personally, Cal needs one more. Not to prove anything to me, not to do anything, but I would just feel better if Cal could get one more. Knowing how close we've been, with 11, we were right there, lost by 1 to UConn, 14 national championship game, lost to UConn, 15, 38-0, even 17, lost to North Carolina on a buzzer beater. I feel like one more though. Because if he wins this title, that's 2 in 10 years, which is a good run. I mean, you don't get much better. Puts him in the likes of Coach K did it. It puts him up there with Roy Williams earlier in his career. I think 05 and 09. I think both of those might have been him. But I think in 10 years, that gives you 5 Final Fours, 2 national titles, maybe even 6 Final Fours. I'm not for sure here. No, that'd be 5 Final Fours and two titles. That's just a good decade, right? That just kind of solidifies it. I mean, he's a great coach. I love him. I don't want him going anywhere. But I feel – so here's my thought.
Wait. 1 second. Are you saying if he wins, he sails off into the sunset?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. I thought that's where you were going with that.
No. The exact opposite, more actually. I think if you look at the decade that Cal's been here, he came in to a program that was Was we low? You know, 5 years of mediocrity. You know, the last 2 years of Tubby, the 2 years of Billy Gillispie, we were in a low spot. He comes in, he says, "Hey, I'm going to do it like no one else has." He brought in freshmen, sent them off to the draft. 3 years in, he won a title. Everyone thought he was going to be the next John Wooden. You know, won a title in 3 years, off to a great start. Got us there with a 38-0, came up short, and then really over the last 4 years hasn't really been able to do much. Really hasn't been able to make chicken salad out of you-know-what. It hasn't really – and Duke's kind of been the one doing it. North Carolina's kind of showed you the mold. I think there's a lot of kids that when they are being recruited, there's a lot of good players that they don't pick other schools over Kentucky. But if you're a player that Cal doesn't want to sell as much, but typically would have picked Kentucky anyway, I think they go elsewhere. But I think if you give Cal this second title, I think the next decade, I think Cal stays for another decade, and I think that decade has multiple titles in it.
Yeah,
because I think what happens is he gets in a rhythm. Because right now he's just an NBA guy who happened to win a title. But if he can start to show you, if he can start being the guy who is better Roy Williams. Because I think Roy Williams is the guy that says, give me 5 stars, give me 4 stars, come stay 3 years, I'll get you pro.
Right.
If Cal can show you he can do that, because I'm telling you, man, over the last decade, I've watched this recruiting close. Unless you have an Anthony Davis, Karl-Anthony Towns, or Zion Williams, it's tough to win a national title with a whole bunch of freshmen. I think if Cal gets to a point where he says, give me a Tyler Hero, give me a Keldon Johnson, give me a freshman like Keldon, a sophomore like Tyler Hero, and a junior like PJ Washington, which I know they aren't that, but I'm just making a point here. You give me those 3, I will do more than anyone else can do with Anthony Davis or Zion Williams. And I think once that point gets made, because we've talked about this, Mike, I don't think we're far away from the NBA lifting the one and done. So once that's done, you don't have to worry about Zion Williams and John Walls. They're gone anyway.
Right.
Once Cal gets to a point where he can go knock on the doors of Tyler Heroes, Keldon Johnsons, Emmanuel Quickleys, and say, give me 2 years and you're gone pro. And then when he can continue to go into kids' house and say, hey, I'm going to play you 2 as sophomores and you 3 as freshmen, that's when I think you start seeing the next decade, 3 titles. That's when you start seeing every year what North Carolina does.
Right.
And I don't like North Carolina, but North Carolina, really, you never count them out of. There's times Kentucky's been counted out of. There's even been an NIT year. But I think when he gets that, I think he becomes what North Carolina is, but with a better coach.
Yeah, and just to add to your point there, the way PJ Washington has grown this year, this could probably be arguably the best coaching job that Calipari has done ever in his career. Just the growth of PJ from freshman to that streak that he was having with like 20-plus points games, that tear in late January, early February, like he is going to hang his hat on that for years to come.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you stay here 2 years, look what PJ's doing. Hey, if you stay here 2 years, look what XYZ is doing. So yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying.
And Cal's never got to be that person. Look at the 3 coaching jobs he's had. UMass and Memphis was one good player, Derrick Rose, Marcus Camby, Tyreek Evans, and a bunch of bad players. Or it's been Kentucky, bunch of good young players. He's not been to a point where he looks at a roster, and I'm telling you, we said this all show. I think last year was what he wanted. I think Cal has hit the point because, man, you watch some of those old Final Four shows, Cal's looking old now.
Yeah.
I think Cal's getting to the point where he wants to sit back. He wants to spend time with his son's a college student. His daughter is starting his family. Maybe there's already grandbabies. they're coming soon. Cal's a human just like us all. I think Cal gets to the point. It gets to the point where he doesn't want to have to spend 6 months a year on a plane in some crappy high school gym recruiting every replacement every year. I mean, recruiting is a part of the game. It's going to happen. But I don't think Cal wants to do it as much. I think Cal wants to sit back. And when I think when you ask Cal, what does your perfect team look like? I think it's one Reed Travis, Luke May, Tyler Hansborough type of senior. It's two oversized or undersized but talented juniors, like a Willie Cauley-Stein who's tall but can't do much on offense, or an Alex Poitras who's a little undersized. Give him those two types of juniors. Give him a P.J. Washington type of Andrew Harrison as a sophomore type of sophomores, and then Tyler Hero, Keldon Johnson, energy, potential at the wazoo, but just young and naive freshmen.
So basically what you're saying is this year's team, everybody a year older except for Hagens and Hero, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And I think that's to the perfect point. Or if last year, if he could have gotten one or two of those guys to come back. Yeah, absolutely. Or maybe if he can find a Zion Williams. Because if you've noticed, look at how his style. When he was at Memphis and UMass, that's when he got in trouble because he recruited every kid that would listen. He walked into every home of every kid on that recruiting class. He didn't care if he was in a bad area, good area, bad raising, had a dark past. He didn't care. He would just walk in there and say, "Come to Memphis." Once he came to Kentucky, he didn't have to do that anymore. He didn't have to walk in the shaded area of, is this guy got a bad coach? Is this guy got an uncle who's trying to get money? Right. But he still had to go for the kid. Like, he had to go for the me guy. And he did a lot of work because I think as the NBA goes on, Boogie Cousins had a lot of me guy in him. Karl-Anthony Towns even had a lot of me in him. And he made that work. Now I think he's to the point where he doesn't want the Ben Simmons. He doesn't want the Marvin Bagleys or even the R.J. Barrett, the guy that the Kobe, what they call it nowadays, the Mamba mentality.
Right.
I don't think he wants that type of guy. If he can get to a point, and I know we rag on Duke, but I do think Zion Williams is a very selfless guy. But I think Zion Williams loves to just play basketball, and if he gets one dunk in your face and then his teammate scores 30, I think he's going to be just as happy.
Yep.
And as much as I hate it, I think he would have fit really good on this team. I don't know whose minutes he would have taken. I don't know if Keldon would have saw less minutes, if maybe it would have stunted PJ's development. I don't know. Or maybe, actually, more than likely, probably what would happen is he would have never went after Reed Travis, and we'd have just had Zion at the 5. So take that for what you will. But I think that's what Cal wants.
Just to add to your point there, I think if we got Zion, we wouldn't have gotten Reed, but also PJ wouldn't have grown the way he did because he wouldn't have had to be the leader earlier in the year because Zion would have kind of took that role, I think. The blunt of it.
Can we talk selfishly for a minute? Can we just talk off air, not, I guess, what fans would call is it not politically correct, but fan-based correct? That's the term we're going to use. We're not going to talk fan-based correctness for a second here. How bad would that have been, though? So let's just say Zion came to Kentucky. Say we probably don't get EJ because EJ probably then goes to Duke because Duke would have needed him more. And we probably don't. I don't know. You listen to Reed talk. Reed wanted to come to Kentucky because he felt Kentucky was the best chance to get into the Final Four.
He's all about winning a championship.
So maybe that's the trade-off. And man, let me tell you, I'm okay with that trade-off.
So we lose EJ. We lose EJ. Yeah.
But so to your point, but let me talk to your point though, and this is a selfish point as a fan of my team, not the players. If that happens, I think our chances of winning the national title are even better. I do think it may have stunted the growth of PJ and Tyler Hero, but I still think we're good enough to win a title. And here's the selfish part. I think PJ and Tyler Hero come back next year. I think it's even better of a chance.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
So then how good are you? Then next year you get maybe even you get Ashton Hagens back. I don't know because what this Kentucky team's done is this Kentucky team's had to rely on everybody to make up for the one All-Star that's not there.
Yeah.
Once Zion's there, everybody kind of plays a little worse. And maybe we wouldn't have won a title with that, but I think we still would have with the depth. So then the team you have this year is pretty much everyone back next year, minus Zion and Reed Travis, and I will take that over the realistic team we're going to get next year, more than likely.
And just to add to that point, I don't think Quade Green leaves either because if you remember right, he left when we were on like a 2 or 3 game skid where we were playing horrible. Like people were saying, "Oh, we're not even an NIT team. We're horrible. We're crap." Yada yada. Cal lost his touch, and then that's when Quade kind of jumped ship. And I don't think we ever get to that point in the season where that happens because Zion is such a game changer. Like he could take the game in his hands. Like, look, guys, I'm going to score 25 points and we'll be okay. So like the winning cures all. Like at that point. So just to add to your point there, I don't think we are a championship caliber team because of that. Because Zion would just take it in his own hands earlier in the year, and we wouldn't have time to grow.
But, see, the only difference is, I think, and it's tough to do. This is Mike is dying on air as we speak. It's a tough thing to say because, see, that's tough, Mike, because, and one of us could be right and one of us could be wrong, or we both could be wrong. But I think we're looking at what Coach K has done with Zion. I think Cal's a much better actual coach and motivator than Coach K. And Coach K comes across the type of the mafia. Like, you do this or else. Like, if you want to get pro, you're doing this. Cal seems to be trying to make the people better. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe not even the best interest of the team, but in the best interest of the individual. I don't think he lets Zion carry everything unless he absolutely has to. The only time I've seen him do that twice was 2013 with Nerlens Noel because literally no one else stepped up, and that 2016 team with Jamal Murray. Those are the only 2 teams where he's basically been like, you know what, carry us if you have to. But I think with this team, because he really liked this team early on, you give Zion, yes, Zion will have his moments. Yes, Zion will do his stuff. But I don't think I think he truly sees the potential in Hagan, T-Row, PJ, Reed. I don't think he lets them sit back and get away with halfway in it. It's just my opinion. Once again, we'll never have a way of knowing. But
so with that being said, you remember earlier in the year when like Zion would go for like a 360 dunk and he would it would just clink off the rim. I think if he did that here at Kentucky, Cal would be up his butt and he would be on the bench.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think?
But Zion also seems like what was that?
Well, like I was going to ask you, do you think he would be able to handle that? Like, would he crumble under the pressure, or would he excel?
I think that now. I think he would take that personal. Once I didn't like when Coach K was when Cal was recruiting him to come here last time. I wasn't that hyped about it. I thought it was a big kid who played at a very small school.
I wanted him bad.
So I do too now. But he was a big kid who went to a small school who didn't play much opponent. You know, he had. I don't think he took any 3-point shots his senior year. In the NCAA, you got to be able to shoot. You know, we've seen this so many times. I really wasn't that hyped. And then I seen what he did against Kentucky. And I was like, okay, I got to watch this. So the talent's there. And then I just seen what he did that first month. And I was like, okay, he's definitely good. And then I've seen the way he lifted his teammates up. And then once he went down, and I saw really how kind of selfish R.J. Barrett was, or how kind of how flaky Cam Reddish was, I was like, was Zion that much of the key maker here? And then now that I see that he took the challenge to come back when he easily could have just said, hey, I'm going pro.
Yeah.
And then what he's done since he came back, 81 points in 3 games, shooting 80%, when really, and his team hasn't blown out anybody. No, I mean, he scored 30. He scored 30 points against Syracuse and they won by 8. Like, that means that tells me he did everything. So to see the type who takes adversity, because, dude, how many 18-year-old kids you would have known would have tucked tail and said, we're going pro right now? I mean, we see it in football all the time, and those kids are older than 18.
Right.
But I think he would have claimed some dunks, or I think he would have went for some steals and missed, and Cal would have parked him around on the bench, especially with guys like Reed Travis and Nick Richards backing him up. Yeah, he would definitely park him on the bench. But I think by this point of the season, he would have played into the style that Cal likes. Because when we haven't seen it as much this year because Reed doesn't play much above the rim and Nick's not really reliable. But you've seen with them longer teams, what does Cal love? I've seen Cal. They've been like shown practices where he will stop practice. He will call a timeout in a big game because someone made a bounce pass over a lob. You give that guy Zion Williams, I think he's drawing up plays half court lobs. Once about this point of the season. I mean, obviously we're all talking speculation, and I'm sure we probably annoyed some people because, why are you talking about Duke players? But hey, this isn't about Duke. This is about what happens if Zion would have came here. So
yeah,
here's my opinion, though, Mike.
Just to add to that point, I think if Zion would have came here, we definitely would have lost EJ and or Reed. But just like what you said, listening to Reed talk, he wanted to come to Kentucky because he wants to win a championship game. Now, is he just saying that just to, pad the curtains? Could he have gone to Duke and said the same thing? Could he have gone to Louisville and said the same thing? I don't know. But since he said that and he's a Kentucky uniform now, I think he would have came to UK.
It's easy to count your what ifs, and right. I get that. The only place I think he truly could have went was Duke, and I think just because because let's be honest, it was Duke, North Carolina, and Kentucky. You're about your three chances, about your three true blue bloods who could win you a title this year.
Right.
If we didn't need him at Kentucky, and I'm just saying, if he looked at Kentucky and said, "Hey, they don't need me," you look at North Carolina, they got Luke May, who's pretty much just a younger version of Reed Travis. So right. I don't think he really found much of a rotation there. So I think maybe he does go to Duke because Duke's basketball, and he could have further. I mean, time to be ridiculed on here, but I would imagine Duke's a better college than probably UK if you're wanting to do something big. If you're wanting to look prestigious on a resume, I mean, let's be honest, Mike. Looking from a standpoint non-athletic, what looks better on a resume? Graduating from Stanford with a master's degree from Kentucky, or graduating from Stanford with a master's degree in Duke? I mean, it's like,
well, I believe Duke is a private school, so it'd definitely be Duke.
That's what I'm saying. If we're not talking basketball, we're talking about turning in resumes to Fortune 500 companies and trying to get a six-figure job. That would have been it. So I truly think maybe it'd have been a swap. Which ask me in April which one I would have taken.
Right.
But,
well,
because
just to add to your point
honest,
here,
if Reed goes nuts in the Final Four and Zion has a horrible shooting day, I'd be like, never would I have swapped.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that because I think Zion's a special talent. I think he'll end up I think he would he will excel either way. But if Zion was here, I think the following year or maybe in the middle of the season, we lose Nick. Nick is definitely not coming back. He sees his role on the team as the Jamal Baker. I'm getting 4 or 5 minutes a game. I'm not about that life. I think he jumps ship and he goes back to Jamaica or wherever he's from, or New York or something like that.
I think he could go anywhere. I mean, he's a 7-foot basketball player, and I think that's one thing that I think a lot of fans have to. Look, you as a fan, you can get upset or you can get passionate or you can want what you want, but I think much like life, careful what you wish for and make sure you look at all ends. Make sure you read the fine print, because do you want A or B? I see when a kid goes elsewhere, it's easy for our fans to get upset. Like our fans, oh, Cal's losing his touch. Or when a kid goes pro, they'll go, oh, I'm tired of this. Cal needs to stop letting these kids leave. Well, you're not going to be able to do both.
Right.
Like example, one of the big names, I guess he's like the number one pick in the draft next year. The James Wiseman guy that's going to Memphis. He was for so long he was coming to Kentucky. He ended up going to Memphis with Penny, and a lot of Kentucky fans got really upset. But you have to realize James Wiseman pretty much kicks Nick Richards out the door, and this is not a perfect world. Nick Richards is not sitting his entire junior year behind someone who's arguably going to be the best player in the league or in the country next year, right? So, you just don't do that. And we can wish, I can hope for all day. I can wish we were like Alabama football and just be 3 deep at every position. But in basketball, it just doesn't happen. So you have to decide what you want. Because, example, everybody's all excited that Cal got this Brooks kid next year. I'm curious at what cost. What does that tell me?
Right.
Does Cal get the vibe that E.J. Montgomery's leaving? Because apparently he's like a 6'9" power forward. Is he getting vibes that E.J.'s leaving? Does he not see E.J. being as good? Or is it something as simple as he wants to put this other kid at the 3? I don't know. But
or it could be as simple as we're losing Reed Travis and PJ in the draft, and he wants 3 guys in the bid.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Maybe he wants to put EJ as a center. Absolutely. But I think that's something that you always have to take into consideration, because I always tell people you can't marry the girl next door and still spend all your time in the strip club. Like you can't expect, you can't sell, because look, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I truly believe that everyone on this team trusts Cal enough that Cal could set them down. Maybe not PJ, because I think PJ's ready to go, but I think Cal could sit down Hagan, Hero, Johnson, Nick Richards, and say, and feed them the line and say, hey, I need you here next year. I need you. You need this. Let's come back together next year. I think
what I did for
if Cal
PJ.
wanted to make that, if Cal wanted to, he could do that. That might be selfish. That might be best. Who knows? But what you can't do, if Kelvin Johnson, who's arguably a top 10 pick, says, you know what, Cal has the best interest in me, I'm coming back next year. And then he comes out and recruits the number 1 person in your position to come in, that's sending mixed signals. You just told me you needed me to win next year. You just told me I was going to be the key piece, and then you brought in a potential replacement. It doesn't work in the NFL, and it's not going to work in college, because the moment that happens, Kelvin Johnson's like, I'm gone. Like, you're bringing my replacement. I'm not about to fight for a whole other spot when I could be fighting for a spot in the NBA. And I think that's where fans have to draw the line. Do you want us to be the guy that, Kentucky got the top 10 players in the country, or do you want to be the one that's missing out on everybody, but we're going to have a lot of sophomores and juniors next year? Because you're not going to get them both.
Yeah. In the end, I like the team that we have now.
I love it too.
Mine is Zion. I think we have a great team, championship caliber team.
Look, and I just want to get to a point where, and I'm just way too optimistic, and it would all be crushed this year. I think last year was that year where Cal tried to pick it up with secondhand parts. And I don't mean any disrespect, but I mean, he tried to, he focused a little less on Colin Sexton, went a little after more after Quade Green. Now that didn't work out, but maybe didn't focus as much on Marvin Bagley, focused more on PJ Washington. He originally didn't focus as much on Michael Porter, focused more on Jared Vanderbilt. And what I'm hoping, and the more I see it, the less likely it becomes, but what I would love that to be, and this is kind of an example of what I was talking to earlier, Mike, is next year, this year we lose PJ and Kelvin, but then next year we have sophomore Hagan, sophomore Hero, sophomore Quickly, sophomore EJ with freshman Kelvin, Whitney, and then the Brooks guy that we got. And then the year after that, we return with a junior Quickly, with a sophomore Maxey, with a freshman insert kid name here. Just kind of keep building. What I don't want to do is get to the point where we're at right now, and then worst case scenario, even with or without a title, everybody just goes. That's kind of the point. But I think that is likely the case. Mike, any closing thoughts?
You just got to trust the process, man. Trust our coach.
Absolutely.
He is. Mike, his gears are spinning. He is working behind the scenes. He's building for next year or 2 years down the road.
One last thought. As I fill out a mini bracket, I start looking. I pick a favorable route. Like if I had my way, if right now, if you told me that you could pick Kentucky's opponent, but you couldn't affect the outcome, my opponents would probably be Abilene Christian, Seton Hall, Georgia State, Utah State, and then like LSU in the championship game. Like if you told me I could pick a reasonable outcome, I mean, don't give me all 16 seeds, but you can pick the easier route.
Right.
I would do that. But if you said, Matt, I guarantee you Kentucky will win the title, what route do you find the most interesting? then give me Seton Hall revenge. Give me Houston. I want to stop that train. Give me North Carolina. Give me Tennessee revenge, and give me Duke in the national championship.
I like that route.
If someone told you, like, Kentucky's going to win the national championship, but for entertainment purposes, you pick the opponents, are those roughly the same opponents you're picking?
Oh, yeah. Definitely give me the hardest route possible. I want to be engaged in every game. I want to have a rooting factor in it. Like, I don't want to be sitting on the couch passively watching the game. I want to be, I hate you, Luke May. I hate you, Zion. I want to be in it. You know what I'm saying?
And as social media takes off, and there's been so much hype around Zion and Duke, and this team beat Duke, so this team must be better than Tennessee with these guys. How great would it be to beat North Carolina in the Elite Eight, beat Tennessee, and then beat Duke, and then you just sit back and say, I can't hear it. Where's the excuse coming from? Because North Carolina was healthy, Tennessee was healthy, and Duke was healthy.
Right.
Like,
Sweet chin music.
That scares the crap out of me as a realistic route. But if you can guarantee that we're going to win, give me that.
Yeah,
if
I
not,
like that route.
give me the worst seed possible. All right, Mike, that is it. Any closing thoughts before we bounce out?
No, guys. Just we play Thursday at 7, isn't it? 7 o'clock game.
Yeah, it's 7:10.
7:10. So it'll probably end up being about 7:30, 7:40. Big shout out to Silver Creek making the state championship game this Saturday up in Indy.
I know you're talking about that, Mike. Congrats.
There we go.
All right, well, we're out.
Yeah, good luck, guys.
All right, Big Blue Breakdown is breaking out.
Go Cats.
That didn't sound good. Ignore that. Cancel that part, Mike. We're not breaking out anything.
No,
we're out.
Still recording.